Good morning, ma'am.
Yes, beta. So did you understand what we did in the previous part?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes, beta.
Ma'am, what about the PhD classes you sent? Told us that you will send the link or something.
I just forgot about it entirely. You just drop a personal message to me right now, Snehal. I'll message
Okay,
Gaurav sir. Good, you reminded me. I just forgot this shit. Sorry,
okay,
dear.
ma'am.
Okay. So did you understand how this place we were talking about, or it had huge temples? Today you were
Yes,
late for
ma'am.
the previous class?
I understood that.
Fine. Now let's go and see this. Mass production has started, which is a landmark in technology.
The potter's wheel.
Huh. Now read about this and observe what are these seals, what are this very quickly.
Ma'am, would we have to learn all the dates?
No, beta, not at all. I'll tell you if there's something to learn. Don't learn the dates.
Okay, ma'am.
Are you done, Snail?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me, beta, what did you read?
Ma'am, in this I read that in India, early stone seals were stamped or that and cylindrical in Mesopotamia, cylindrical stone seals were made which were pierced down in the middle with a stick and then it was rolled over wet clay so that a continuous seal or a picture could be formed. These seals were crafted out, were made by very skilled craftsmen, and sometimes they would carry writings such as the name of the ruler, the god he worshipped, or his official position, etc.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
A seal would that seal that was made would be rolled on a clay covering clay covering the string knot of a cloth package or the mouth of a pot, keeping the contents inside it safe and not able to spill outside.
So you think the seals were advanced or they were very primitive types?
Ma'am, they were advanced.
We've seen many advances which had already come. They had already developed which kind of tools?
Ma'am, like
Which metal? Which metal tools were being used?
copper and tin.
Bronze. Yes, copper,
Oh,
bronze. this tools. Okay, let's do this. Life in the city. Very quickly read it. We are going to discuss life in the city. We are talking about modern cities now. A city which is well planned, a city which has a larger area, a city which is safe enough. So, how was the life in that city? Now we are going to read that. Which city are we going to keep in mind? We are reading about
Ma'am,
the one,
Mesopotamia. Uruk.
the one which was larger. Yes, very good. Read how was the life there. Imagine yourself living there, and you'll be able to remember it always.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, could you please scroll down?
Yes, Peter. Read it till sons, only till here.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, read.
Read, Peter.
Ma'am, read.
Okay, let's go back. Now, because so many people are living there, beta, obviously all of them would not be the same. So, ruling elite class emerged. Even in these cities, we had an elite class, a small section of society who had a major share of the wealth. Nothing makes this fact clear as enormous riches. How do we know that the people were so rich? Jewelry, gold vessels, wooden musical instruments, inlaid with white shells, lapis lazuli, expensive stones, ceremonial daggers of gold, buried with some kings and queens at Ur. So this is about which people? Normal, ordinary people of Ur or rich people?
The rich people, the elite class.
Yes, but they were very few in number. What about the ordinary people? We know from the legal text means whatever disputes were there or inheritance matters were there, that in Mesopotamia society, the nuclear family was the norm. There we did not have a joint family system. In which city?
Or
No, here we are talking about Mesopotamia. See, read this. In Mesopotamia, we had a pattern of nuclear family. Man, his wife, and children, that's it. So this kind of a pattern was very popular in which society?
Mesopotamian.
Yes, this was more common, although in some cases the married son used to continue to live with his parents. The father was the head of the family. We know a little about the procedure for marriage. We don't know how marriages were conducted. A declaration was made about the willingness to marry, the bride's parents giving their consent to the marriage. Only what we know is that it was mandatory for the parents of the bride to give their consent for the marriage. Then a gift was given by the groom's people. Who used to give gifts? The bride side or the groom side? Hmm?
Family. Groom's
Yes.
family.
The groom's family. How this pattern changed in the modern world gradually, we'll study later. But earlier, gifts were not given by the girl's side. Gifts were given by the groom's people to the bride's people. Now, when the wedding took place, gifts were exchanged by both parties, ate together, and they made offerings in a temple. When her mother in law came to fetch her, we are talking about the bride. The bride was given her share of inheritance by her father. So, when the bride is leaving for her in law's place, so she was given her share from her father's property. That means what? The bride is getting from both the sides. She's getting the gifts from the groom's family as well. Plus, she's also going to get her inheritance from her
Father.
share of the inheritance, whatever money or whatever the father wants to give in form. However, the house, the herds, the field, etc., they were left behind, so they were inherited by the sons. Whatever he could give, whatever the daughter could carry, that the father used to give as inheritance, her share. But those things which could not move, like house, fields, etc., they used to automatically go to the son. Okay. Let us look at Ur, one of the earliest cities to have been excavated. Ur was a town whose ordinary houses were systematically excavated in 1930s. The narrow winding streets indicate that wheeled carts could not have reached many of the houses. Why? Why the wheeled carts could not reach many of the houses?
Ma'am, because there were narrow winding streets.
What do you mean by narrow winding streets? Just elaborate.
Ma'am, they were very thin streets which could not have enough space for the wheels to travel through.
Very good. They were narrow streets. So every house was not accessible. Every house we could not travel and reach to the doorstep because the streets were narrow or broad.
Narrow.
The streets were quite narrow. We are talking about which city?
Or
Or we talked about rich people, we talked about the ordinary people. Now we are talking about the city planning, town planning, what kind of roads we had, all those things. Sacks of grain and firewood would have arrived on donkey backs. So those houses where we did not have these bullock carts reaching, things used to reach the house with the help of which animal?
donkeys.
Yes. Narrow winding streets and the irregular shape of the house plots also indicate the absence of town planning. Irregular, there was no fixed pattern. Anywhere we had a house, okay, irregular shape of house plots were there. The streets were also narrow. So what was lacking? What was lacking? What was absent?
Town planning.
Yes, town planning was not there. There were no street drains of the kind we find in contemporary Mohenjo-daro. They had street drains also, but all the water used to drain out from the streets into these drains. Drains and clay pipes were instead found in the inner courtyard of the Ur houses. So there was nothing of this kind on the roads, main streets. However, in some houses, these we had clay pipes and drains in some houses. And it is thought that house roofs sloped inwards and rainwater was channeled via the drain pipes into sumps in the inner courtyards. It was believed that the rainwater which used to fall on the terrace was collected with the help of these pipes. Basically, it was not for drain water. They used to make a sump. Sump is basically a pit which is covered and water and sewage can go through it. So they used to basically collect water from the rain. This would have been a way of preventing the uppaved streets from becoming excessively slushy after a downpour. Why they were doing this? So that all the water does not go into the street. Supposing there are 10 houses on the terrace, there's so much of water which comes on the rain and all the water from the terrace goes into the streets. Streets would become slushy, over flooded with water. So probably to save this, what did they do? Each house had a disposal system of their own rainwater into what was that word we use? Into sumps. So why did they have sumps, each of them? So that the streets did not become excessively crowded with water. Yet, people seem to have swept all their household refuse into the
What is the
streets.
meaning of slushy?
Meaning of?
What is the meaning of slushy?
Slushy means excessively, something which is in excess, too much. Slushy,
Okay,
here
ma'am.
you can say overloaded with water over here, beta. But people were not very systematic or hygienic in that place. See, people swept all their household refuse into the streets to be trodden underfoot. All the waste from their house, they used to go and put it on the streets. People used to walk on the street, so they used to trod on that dirt or the waste which is coming from the houses. This made street levels rise, and over time, the thresholds of houses had also to be raised so that no mud would flow inside after the rains. Why did the street level rise? Read this line carefully and tell me, why did the street level rise?
Ma'am, because all of the waste from the household was swept or was swept onto the streets where where people did not clean it, and it settled there, and thus it rised.
Yes, beta. People kept on trotting or walking in them. So layer and layer and layer of all the dirt, streets rised. Now the streets, on the both the sides of the streets, we had houses. So the houses also had to be raised now. Why? Because the streets had risen. So mud would flow inside after the rains. Whenever we had rains, mud would flow inside. So the houses also had to be raised a little. Light came into the rooms not from the windows, but from the doorways opening into the courtyards. No windows, they just had doors which opened into the courtyard, the back open area. So light only came from this. This would also have given families the privacy. Probably they did not want a lot of light to come in to maintain what?
The privacy.
Yes. There were superstitions about houses recorded in Omen tablets at Ur. There are some tablets, Omen tablets, Apshakun, the word, where they mention about some houses. A raised threshold brought wealth. What are the things they believe? That if the house has a raised threshold, it will bring
Wealth.
wealth. A front door that did not open towards another house was considered to be
Lucky.
lucky. But if the main wooden door of a house opened to outwards instead of inwards, then the wife would be a torment to her husband. Means, what does the last one mean?
Ma'am, if the front door of a house opened inwards, that was opened outwards instead of inwards. That is like it opened towards the street and not the house. Then the wife would trouble her husband, torment her husband.
So these are all superstitions, and they are written on what? How did we get to know? They're written on tablets. Okay. Any house which has a raised threshold would bring
Wealth.
okay. And if the front door did not open towards another house, then it was considered, the house was considered to be
Lucky.
and if the main wooden door opened outwards instead of opening inwards, then the condition would be
That the wife would trouble or torment her husband.
there was a town cemetery at Ur in which the graves of royalty and commoners have been found. Like we have crematoriums now, same, a
Yes.
kind of a crematorium where we have the remains of graves. All the rich royal people and the common people, everybody's grave at the same place. But a few individuals were found buried under the floors of ordinary houses. This we don't know why it was done. Normally, we had a place for cremation. And whether it was a royal person or it was an ordinary person, the graves were there only. But very strange, some individuals were found buried under the floors of the houses only. Why they were found buried under the floors of the houses? We don't have any reasons. Were they those illegal murders at that time, which were not the deaths which were not to be disclosed? Most probably, the historians believe this, that probably these were the people where the deaths were not disclosed by the families. So in their houses only, they used to bury them. That is the only logic historians are giving, because we had a proper place for cremation. There was no problem. Whether it is a rich person or a poor person, they don't have to buy land. They don't have to spend money. We had enough space in that time to go and bury them. So probably still we have some people who are buried in their houses. It could be, there could be many reasons behind it. Fine. So this was city life. Now we're going to talk about a trading town in a pastoral zone. Just read the first two paragraphs, Nehal. Let's discuss.
Okay, ma'am.
What is a pastoral town?
Pastoral town.
What is
Ma'am,
pastoral?
Ma'am, the people who herd sheep and goats and cattle and move from one place to another.
Very good, very good. Then you'll be able to understand. Read, Bachi. Is Anushri irregular in other main subject classes also? Eco, pol science and all.
No, ma'am, she is regular.
She just messaged me today. Sorry, ma'am, I'll not be able to take her class. It's absolutely okay 1 day or 2 days. And what about Keshav?
Ma'am, he is regular sometimes. Like there are periods where he comes and there are periods or like 1 or 2 days where he doesn't.
Okay.
Ma'am, the first classes are both are there.
Yes, beta. In the initial periods, I've seen they're there. First 3 periods, first 4 periods. This I've seen in most of the classes. But the last periods, the last ones, second last, I don't know why the strength goes down. Finished reading? Or you want more time?
Ma'am, just a minute more.
Ha, beta, please take your time.
Ma'am, penned flock is the caged animals.
Yes, beta.
Penned flock is the caged animals.
Yes, yes. We are just coming to this. I'll explain it to you. Just 1 minute. Just the first 2 paragraphs, okay?
Red.
Okay. After 2000 BC, the royal capital of Mari flourished. We had Mesopotamia, then we had Uri. And now which place is flourishing?
Mari.
Yes. And this place, Mari, it is not on the southern plains. Not on the southern plain. Okay, slightly highly productive agriculture. Why do you think it flourished?
Because it had good agriculture.
Yes. And the reason was further upstream on the Euphrates. Where was it? Upstream or downstream?
Upstream.
Okay. So 2 things were done very commonly in this place, Mari. Agriculture and
Animal rearing.
Both of the things were done, beta. There we mainly had agriculture. Some communities in this kingdom of Mari were both farmers. I mean, they were involved in agriculture as well as pastoralist. You've already told me the meaning. But most of its territory was used by pasturing sheep and goats. Most of it were basically used for which animals? Basically, which cattle we are talking about?
Sheep and goats.
Yes. What did the herders do? They need to exchange young animals, cheese, leather, and meat in return for grain, metal tools, etc. They just had these. And whatever material they needed, they used to give in exchange. Like they wanted grains, they were not involved. Supposing these herders have just animals, they're not involved in agriculture. Now they need grains to eat, so they will exchange. Either they will give young animals or they will give the products which they're getting from these animals. For example, cheese, leather, meat in return for grain and tools. Two things mainly which they needed were hmm, yes,
Grains and metal tools.
yes. And the manure also which they got from these domesticated flock was of great use to a farmer. Yet at the same time, there may be a conflict. See, everything is set. If they don't have agriculture, they have animals. They used to either give animals or the product of these animals. And in return, they used to generally take the grains or the tools. But sometimes there was conflict. A shepherd may take his flock to water across a sown field. Supposing it is your field and I'm a shepherd and I have to cross the field, I'm crossing the field. So what will happen? All the flock will also cross the field. So what will happen to the crops?
They will be destroyed.
Yes, they will be ruined or they would be destroyed. So there would be a conflict, there would be a fight. Herdsmen, being mobile, can raid agricultural villages and seize their stored goods. Herdsmen, they're mobile, they keep moving from one place to another. So they could attack these villages. Sometimes they used to come in groups, attack the villages and seize, take away all their stored goods. For their part, settled groups may deny pastoralists access to river and canal water along a certain set of paths. So what solution did the villagers find for this? There were two main problems which the villagers were facing because of these people, herdsmen, who moved from one place to another. One, when they used to move from one place to another, they used to cross the fields, crops, and the entire herd would also crop. So what would happen to the crops?
They would be destroyed.
They would be destroyed. Second, sometimes they used to come in the groups and loot away things and go away. So what the solution these villagers did was they did not allow them to enter in the areas along certain set of paths. They fix certain paths that yes, anybody who's coming as a herdsman and needs to cross our village and go to the next village, they will go only from these paths. Those paths were selected where we did not have agricultural fields. So there were set paths for them. Okay. They were denied access to a river and canal water. They were not allowed to enter towards rivers and towards water areas. Only some certain set of paths were there for them. They were not allowed. The reason we've already discussed too. Through Mesopotamian history, the nomadic communities of the Western Desert filtered into the prosperous agricultural heartland. See, they have entered here also. Rich agriculture areas. Shepherds would bring their flocks into the sown area in the summer. They used to bring their flocks in the land which was already sown. In which season they used to bring their flocks? Which season, beta? They used to bring their flocks? Summers.
Summer.
Now what they used to do? They would come as herders, harvest laborers, or hired soldiers. There were three ways we had people. Either they were herders, or we had the labor, harvest labor people, or hired soldiers. They occasionally became prosperous and settled down. They became prosperous, they started settling down at one place. They stopped moving now. They came there, but then they got the work as a labor, or they were selected as hired as soldiers. So now they settled down. They stopped which kind of a life?
Pastoral.
Pastoral life. They came in as herders, but then they got as a job of a labor. Maybe they were used for harvesting, or they were hired as soldiers. So occasionally they became prosperous, they became well off, and then they settled down, they stopped moving. A few gained the power to establish their own rule. Some of them became so powerful that they established the rule. For example, they've given you the Akkadians, the Amorites, the Assyrians, and the Armenians. All of them earlier, they were herders, beta. Then they became prosperous, they settled down, they became so well off and so powerful that they established their own rule. Okay. The kings of Mari were Amorites. See this word? Did we read this word over here? Amorites?
Yes, Amorites.
That means they started ruling also. We are talking about herders only who settled down, who became rich, who became powerful, and who started ruling. So we were talking about the place Mari, and the king of Mari was also one of such cases. They were Amorites only. They were dressed differed from that of the original inhabitants, and who respected not only the gods of Mesopotamia, but also raised a temple at Mari for Dagan. See, beta. Now, these people, their dress was different from the original inhabitants of Mari because they did not belong to Mari. Na? They had come to that place, Mari, as
Herders.
herders. So their lifestyle was, of course, different. So that is why the dress also was different from the original inhabitants. These original inhabitants respected not only the gods of Mesopotamia, but also raised a temple at Mari for Dagan, the goddess Steppe. Now they had their own gods also. So they started making temples for their own gods. Mesopotamian society and culture were thus open to different people and cultures. And the vitality of the civilization was perhaps due to this intermixture. So Mesopotamian culture has come to this new place also. They have made their own temples. They're still wearing their own clothes. Their own dressing style is there. So this is intermixing of what? Cultures. Okay. See the dress. Can you see the dress being worn over here? This dress was worn by Amorites. Okay. Who used to wear such kind of a dress? Amorites. Who were Amorites?
Ma'am, the herders who came to Mari and then started ruling that place.
Good. Now tell me a bit, beta, about the second paragraph.
Ma'am, okay. Ma'am, just a minute.
Read. Just the second part, okay? Read it and then tell me.
In Mesopotamian history, many nomadic or pastoral communities used to come to Mari, and they would settle down. They would come in during the summer months, and they would come in as herders, harvest laborers, or hired soldiers. And there, if they became prosperous and started living a good life, then they would settle down. These groups, some of these groups gained a lot of power, and they started to establish their own rule over the areas. The major groups included the Akkadians, the Amorites, the Assyrians, and the Armenians. The kings of Mari were the Amorites who dressed different from the original inhabitants, and they also worship the gods of Mesopotamia and the gods of their own, and they built a temple at Mari for Dagan, the god of Steppe. The mixed culture and the society of these different races coming together made a very vast variation in the civilization.
Very good. They came from steppes, they are grasslands. So they remembered their own area. So they made a temple for their god also. What was the name of the god?
Dagan.
This is the last thing that we are going to do today. This is the palace. We are just going to observe the palace today. See how beautiful. This is the palace at Mari of King. Okay, Mari we have done. Just see nicely. Audience hall, outer court, throne room, inner court. See how huge it is. And see this part also. Palace. This is the courtyard. Scribe's office with benches and clay bins for storing tablets. You know what is a scribe? A person who writes, isn't it? See, such a huge office for scribes. People used to sit here and write. And you have clay bins. Whatever they were to write, those tablets were also stored. What is this? This is the kitchen. See, nice. This is the royal suite. Okay. Workshops and kitchen, lavatory, bath, paintings on the wall. So they've decorated the palace as well. Paintings on the wall. This is all about the royal palace, how the kings were living. And we've already studied about the back history of the kings. Just observe this palace, what all is there in the palace. Just observe the palace, then we'll discuss about it. Just see this. This is the entrance gate. All this is closed. And this is just an opening over here. This, we don't know what it is.
It might be a garden.
This one. Yes, something looking like a key. So I was assuming maybe this used to close at night and they used to open it with a key. Nothing clear because this part is looking like a key.
Yes, ma'am, but it might be a
Yes.
garden.
Could be a garden as well. Yes, it could be a garden. So this is the audience hall. This is the open court. If the king wanted to have his court in open some fine day, so he used to have his court here only. All people, ministers sitting with him. Open court. If you have visited Red Fort in Agra, you must have seen a lot of open courts. Have you seen Red Fort?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Red Fort, if you go, you'll find a lot of outer courts, up open courts. This is inner court, closed one. So the king could sit here, or he had outer court. And then she beautifully, what is this?
A courtyard.
Whose office is this? Right side.
Scribe's office.
So that means the king had hired a lot of scribes. He used to make them write a lot of things. And then we can see big bins of clay. What were they storing?
Tablets.
Tablets. Oh, this kitchen is nice. Not able to understand. These are probably the hearths, burners. From here, I think the fuel was inserted. See?
Yes, ma'am.
Must be cooking on these places. And the wood or whatever had to be used for fire, we don't even exactly know. Must be inserted from here. And what could this be?
Area for storing. Pots and
Yes. It could be area for storage. This line is going out. What does this show?
ma'am, that the kitchen was bigger than this. And this could be shelves.
Okay. Maybe it was a primitive chimney, Snehal.
Yes, ma'am.
Or maybe the smoke coming out. Again, maybe. Then this is lavatory and bath. Probably Indian style and Western. Some primitive form of Indian style of toilet and
Yes,
Western
ma'am.
style of toilets. Isn't it? And maybe these were the tiles around. This was the main door of the lavatory. This is all for the king. It's all royal. So maybe they
Yes.
must have got ideas from somewhere. This is something Indian style, Western style of toilets. This is how they decorated their walls in the palace. They had paintings on the wall. So this is the lifestyle. Whose palace is this?
King of Mari.
Great Palace of Mari. What is it called?
Great Palace of Mari.
This was a residence of royal family, the hub of administration, place of production, especially of precious metal ornaments. It was so famous in its time that a minor king came from North Syria just to